It's our stories. Welcome to a world where real stories sounds like a movie script.
Imagine losing not one loved one, but two in a single day. I came home early and saw something that burned itself into my eyes forever. But the worst part was not the act of betrayal itself, but what happened afterwards. When my own mother looked me in the eye and said that I was selfish because I didn't want to share my wife with my brother. This is the story of how I burned my family tree to the ground.
They say blood is thicker than water, that family is the anchor that holds you when the storm comes. For 30 years, I believed that lie. I breathed it. I lived it. My name's Mark. I'm 32 years old, successful architect, owner of a beautiful home in the suburbs, and until 48 hours ago, the husband of the most beautiful woman in the world, Elena. And I had a brother, David. David wasn't just my brother, he was my shadow. We were Irish twins, born less than a year apart. We shared a room growing up, we shared secrets, we defended each other in school fights. When I met Elena 5 years ago, David was the one who told me, "She's the one, bro, lock that down." He was my best man. He gave a toast that made my mother cry. He stood by the altar smiling, that charming, crooked smile of his, looking like the proudest sibling on earth. Looking back now, I realize that smile wasn't pride, it was ownership. We were a tight unit. Sunday dinners at mom and dad's, Friday night drinks at my place. David was going through a rough patch, lost his job, bad breakup, so he was crashing on our couch for a few weeks. Those weeks turned into 3 months. I didn't mind, he was family. Elena didn't mind either. In fact, she was so supportive. "He needs us, Mark," she'd say, touching my arm with those soft hands. "We can't kick him out when he's down." I felt like the luckiest man alive. A loving wife, a loyal brother. I was the provider, the protector. I was the king of my little castle. I didn't know I was actually the jester. It was a Tuesday. A gray, unremarkable Tuesday. I was supposed to be in Chicago for a site inspection until Thursday, but the client canceled last minute due to a permitting issue. I was annoyed. I hate wasted time. I changed my flight, landed at 2 p.m., and decided not to call Elena. I wanted to surprise her. I stopped at a florist and bought lilies, her favorite. I picked up a bottle of the expensive red wine David liked. I thought, hey, let's have a nice family dinner tonight. I pulled into the driveway. David's car was there, blocking the garage. Typical David, I chuckled to myself, shaking my head. I parked on the street, grabbed the flowers and the wine, and walked to the front door. The house was quiet. Too quiet for 3 p.m. Usually the TV is on, or Elena is on a conference call. She works from home. I unlocked the door softly. I didn't want to wake them if they were napping. David often napped on the couch in the afternoon. "Honey?" I called out, but not too loudly. No answer. I saw David's sneakers in the hallway, kicked off haphazardly. Next to them were Elena's heels. One was upright, the other was knocked over on its side. Something cold touched the back of my neck, a primal instinct. The hair on my arm stood up. It wasn't a sound, it was a feeling, a heaviness in the air. I walked past the living room, empty. I walked past the kitchen, empty. Then I heard it. It came from upstairs, from our bedroom, the master suite. It wasn't a scream. It wasn't a conversation. It was the sound I knew intimately. It was the sound my wife made when she was close to the edge, a specific breathy moan that I thought belonged only to me. My brain tried to reject it. She's watching a movie, I thought. She's exercising. But then I heard a voice, a male voice, low, guttural, urging her on. "That's it. Look at me. Look at me." I dropped the wine. The bottle didn't break. It landed on the thick hallway rug with a dull thud, but inside me, something shattered. That voice? I'd heard that voice every day of my life. I heard it in the bunk bed above me. I heard it at graduation. I heard it giving the best man speech. David. I don't remember climbing the stairs. It felt like floating, like an out-of-body experience. My heart wasn't beating, it was hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird trying to break its cage.
The bedroom door was slightly ajar, just a crack. I pushed it open. The afternoon sun was filtering through the curtains, casting a golden light over the bed. My bed. The bed we bought together. The sheets were tangled. And there they were. Animalistic, that's the only word. They weren't making love, they were devouring each other. My brother was on top of my wife, his back to me, his muscles tense. Elena's legs were wrapped around him. Her head was thrown back into the pillow, eyes squeezed shut, mouth open in ecstasy. She opened her eyes. She saw me. For a second, the universe froze. Her eyes went wide, filled with a terror so pure it looked like madness. She didn't scream, she just gasped, a choking sound. David felt her body stiffen. He paused. "What?" he grunted. He turned his head over his shoulder. He saw me standing there in my suit, holding a bouquet of white lilies that were slowly being crushed in my grip. David didn't jump off. He didn't cover her up instantly. He just stared at me. His face was flushed, sweaty, and for a split second before the fear set in, I saw annoyance. Like I was the intruder, like I had interrupted them. "Mark, wait!" Elena screamed, finally finding her voice, scrambling to pull the sheet up, pushing David off her. I couldn't speak. My throat was full of bile. I looked at the man I shared a womb with. I looked at the woman I promised to die for. And then I saw it, on the nightstand next to the lamp, a framed photo of our wedding day. They were doing this right next to the picture of us saying our vows. The rage didn't come hot, it came cold, ice cold. I threw the lilies. They hit David in the chest, scattering white petals all over the sweaty, naked skin of my brother. "Get out," I said. My voice didn't sound like mine. It sounded like grinding stones. "Mark, please, let us explain." Elena sobbed, clutching the sheet to her chest, covering the body that I had worshipped for 5 years. She looked small, pathetic. "You have 2 minutes." I looked at my watch. "If you are not out of my house in 2 minutes, I am posting the photos I just took to the family group chat, and then I'm calling the cops to report a break-in." I hadn't taken any photos. It was a bluff, but fear is a powerful motivator. David scrambled out of bed, tripping over his own jeans. He looked ridiculous, the big brother, the protector, hopping on one leg, trying to put on his pants while looking at me with terrified eyes. "Mark, don't do anything crazy," David stammered, hands raised. We didn't mean to hurt you. It just happened. We fell in love." Love. That word hit me harder than a fist. Love. I laughed, a dark, hollow sound. "Love? You're screwing my wife in my bed while I pay off your student loans, David? That's not love. That's being a parasite." I turned around and walked downstairs. I couldn't look at them anymore. I needed air. I needed to sanitize my brain. I went to the kitchen and grabbed a knife, not to use it on them. I just needed to hold something hard and cold, something real. I stood by the island, listening to the frantic footsteps upstairs, the zippers, the hushed whispers. They came down 3 minutes later. Elena was crying, her mascara running down her face. David looked pale, holding his car keys. "Mark," Elena reached out a hand. "Don't." I pointed the knife at the floor, establishing a boundary. "Key, now!" She trembled as she placed her house key on the counter. "Get out, both of you." They left. The door closed. I locked it. Then I engaged the deadbolt. Then I slid down against the door and sat on the floor, shaking uncontrollably. The adrenaline crash was brutal. I wanted to vomit. I wanted to scream. But mostly, I just felt empty. I sat there for 20 minutes. The silence of the house was deafening. I needed an anchor. I needed someone to tell me that I was right, that this was insanity. I called my mother. She picked up on the second ring. "Hi, honey. You're back early? Did you surprise Elena?" "Mom," I choked out. I found them." "Found who, sweetie?" "David and Elena. In bed. Together." There was a silence on the other end, a long, heavy silence, but it wasn't the silence of shock. It was the silence of calculation.
"Oh, Mark," she sighed. Not a gasp, a sigh, like I had just told her I crashed the car. "Where are they now?" "I kicked them out," I said, wiping tears from my face. "I threw them out on the street. Mom, he was sleeping with my wife." "Mark, listen to me." Her voice dropped an octave. It became stern, the voice she used when we were kids fighting over a toy. "You need to calm down. You shouldn't have thrown them out. David has nowhere to go." I froze. The phone felt slippery in my hand. "What?" "Did you hear me? He betrayed me. He destroyed my marriage." "It takes two to make a marriage work, Mark. You've been working so much lately. David was there for her. They made a mistake, yes, but he is your brother. Blood is forever. Wives come and go, but you only have one brother." My brain short-circuited. "Are you defending him?" "I'm not defending him," she snapped. "I'm looking at the big picture. David called me 5 minutes ago. He's crying, Mark. He's suicidal. He says they are in love. If you push them away now, you'll lose the whole family. You need to be the bigger man. Forgive them for the sake of the family." "He called you?" I whispered. "So you knew?" I suspected. I saw the way they looked at each other at Christmas, but I didn't want to cause drama. I thought it would pass. "You knew," I repeated. "And you let me buy him a car last month? You let me pay for his dental surgery while he was sleeping with my wife?" "That's money, Mark. You have plenty of money. David has nothing. He needs us." "He had me." I roared into the phone, finally losing control. "He had me, and he stabbed me in the back, and now you're holding the knife for him." "If you divorce her," my mother continued, ignoring my pain, "it'll be a scandal. Everyone will know. Just let them stay in the guest house for a while. Let things cool down. Maybe you can work out an arrangement. Open marriages are very common now." I looked at the phone as if it had turned into a snake. This wasn't my mother. This was a stranger, a monster protecting her favorite broken cub, ready to sacrifice the strong one to keep the weak one alive. "Mark, are you there?" "No, Mom," I said, my voice dead calm. "Mark isn't here anymore. You want David? You can have him. You can have both of them. Don't you dare hang up on me. I am your mother." "Not anymore," I said. "You just made your choice." I ended the call. Then I blocked her number. I stood up. The tears were gone. The shaking had stopped. If they wanted to burn my life down, fine. But they forgot one thing. I was the architect. I knew exactly where the load-bearing walls were, and I was about to bring the whole structure down on top of their heads. I walked into my office. I didn't go for the booze. I went for the safe. Inside were the deeds to the house, the car titles, the prenuptial agreement that Elena had signed 5 years ago, laughing, saying she'd never need it. And the promissory notes. Every single time David borrowed money, I made him sign a note. Just for tax purposes, I used to say. He signed them without reading. I looked at the pile of papers. $40,000 in loans to David. The house was in my name only. I bought it before the marriage. The cars were leased under my company. My mother wanted me to support them. She wanted me to be the bigger man. Okay, I'll be the biggest man they've ever seen. A giant who is gonna crush them. I picked up the phone again, not to call family, but to call my lawyer. "Hey, Jim, sorry to wake you. I need you to file an eviction notice, immediate, and I need to start a forensic audit of my finances. I think my wife has been siphoning money to my brother." The war had begun. I didn't sleep that night. While David and Elena were presumably crying in a cheap motel room, paid for with my credit card, no doubt, I was becoming a forensic accountant. I'd logged into everything: joint accounts, credit cards, the company expenses. What I found made the infidelity look like a minor infraction. This was grand larceny. Elena hadn't just been mistaken. She had been funding David's lifestyle for 2 years using my money. Venmo transactions, labeled groceries, sent to David $500, $800, $1,200. business trips on the Amex that coincided exactly with days I was actually working. They weren't trips, they were stays at the Ritz-Carlton 30 minutes from our house, spa treatments, room service, champagne. I did the math. In the last 18 months, my wife had siphoned approximately $45,000 of my earnings to entertain my brother. I stared at the spreadsheet. My sadness evaporated completely. It was replaced by a cold, sharp clarity. They weren't just lovers, they were grifters, con artists, and I was the mark. I printed everything, every statement, every receipt. Then I logged into the mobile carrier account. I paid for both of their phones. Click, suspended. Then the car insurance portal. Click, canceled. Then my secondary credit cards. Click, reported lost and stolen. I was systematically turning off the lights in their world one by one.
At 3 a.m., the pounding started. I watched them through the security camera feed on my iPad. They were at the front door. David looked disheveled, drunk, and angry. Elena was standing behind him, shivering in the coat she had left with. "Mark, open the goddamn door!" David screamed, kicking the wood. "My cards aren't working! You canceled my cards, you petty bastard!" I pressed the intercom button. My voice boomed out of the speaker above their heads. "They aren't your cards, David. They are authorized user cards on my account. And yes, I canceled them." "We have nowhere to go," Elena cried out, looking up at the camera. "Mark, please, be reasonable. It's freezing out here. Just let us in to get some clothes. We can talk about this like adults." "Adults don't sleep with their brother-in-law," I replied calmly. "You are trespassing. If you are not off my property in nearly 30 seconds, I am calling the police." "You won't call the cops on your own brother," David shouted. He picked up a garden gnome from the porch, a gift from my mother, and smashed it against the door. That was the mistake. I dialed 911. "Yes, I have 2 intruders attempting to break into my home. One is violent and armed with a blunt object. I am fearing for my life." I didn't tell the dispatcher it was my brother. I let the officers figure that out. 10 minutes later, flashing blue lights illuminated the driveway. I watched from the window as 2 officers wrestled a screaming David to the ground. He was resisting. He was drunk. "It's my brother. It's a misunderstanding," he yelled as they cuffed him. I walked out onto the porch, wrapped in a robe, holding a mug of coffee. The officer looked up. "Sir, do you know these people?" "I do," I said coldly. "That is my estranged brother and my soon-to-be ex-wife. They do not live here. They have been asked to leave repeatedly. I want to press charges for trespassing and destruction of property." Elena gasped. "Mark, you can't. He'll go to jail." He should have thought about that before he picked up the statue. I said, "Take him away." They dragged David into the back of the cruiser. Elena was left standing on the lawn, sobbing. The officer told her to leave or she'd be next. She walked away into the darkness, calling an Uber that I knew she couldn't pay for. The sun came up. I felt surprisingly energized. There was one loose end, the car. David drove a sleek BMW M3. It was his pride and joy. It was the only thing that made him feel like a big shot. Naturally, the lease was in my name. I had co-signed for it because his credit score was garbage. Actually, the lease was entirely in my name. He was just the registered driver. I called the dealership at 9 a.m. "Hi, this is Mark. I have a lease with you. Vehicle ending in VIN 4922. Yes, I've lost possession of the key and the unauthorized driver refuses to return it. I need a repossession. Immediately. The car is currently parked on the street at my address. We can have a truck there in an hour, sir." "Perfect. Do you have a spare key?" "The driver will have a master." At 10:30 a.m., Elena returned. She probably walked back. She was banging on the garage door, screaming that she needed her laptop for work. Then the tow truck arrived. It was a beautiful sight. The driver backed up to the BMW. He hooked it up efficiently. David must have been released from the drunk tank, or maybe Elena called him, because a taxi screeched to a halt. David jumped out, still wearing the same dirty clothes from yesterday. Hey, don't touch my car! He sprinted toward the tow truck driver. The driver, a burly guy who had seen it all, just held up a clipboard. Leaseholder ordered a repo. Step back, sir. I'm the driver. I make the payments. David lied. He hadn't made a payment in 6 months. Not according to the bank, pal. Then the driver cranked the winch. The BMW rose into the air, tilted at a 45-degree angle. David looked at me. I was standing in the window again, just watching. He looked at his car, his symbol of status being taken away. Then he looked at Elena shivering on the curb, then back at me. He flipped me off. You're dead to me, Mark. You hear me? Mom is going to kill you for this. My phone buzzed. It was my dad. I hadn't blocked him yet. I looked at the screen. Dad calling. I took a deep breath. My father was a quiet man. He usually did whatever Mom told him. If Mom was the general, Dad was the foot soldier. I answered. Hello? Mark? His voice was shaky, weak. Your mother, she's in the hospital. Chest pains. She collapsed after the police called about David. The guilt hit me for a second. Just a second. Is she okay? I asked. Doctors say it's stress, high blood pressure. Mark, she's asking for you. She says you're killing the family. You need to stop this. Drop the charges against David. Give him the car back, please. If she dies, this is on you. The manipulation. It was masterful. Even from a hospital bed, she was pulling the strings. Dad, I said softly, I didn't put her in the hospital. David did. Elena did. And Mom did by enabling them. Mark, she's your mother. And I was her son. But clearly I was just the ATM. Tell her I hope she feels better. But I'm not coming and I'm not stopping. I hung up. Now I was truly alone. But I wasn't done. The divorce was just paperwork. The real blow was coming. I knew where David was hiding his personal stash of cash, money he stole from our grandmother years ago, and I knew exactly who to tell. 3 months later, the courtroom smelled of floor wax and old wood. Elena sat on the other side of the aisle. She looked different. The expensive highlights in her hair were grown out. She was wearing a modest gray suit, trying to look like the victim. Next to her was a court-appointed lawyer because, surprise, surprise, she couldn't afford a private one after I froze the accounts. My lawyer, Jim, looked like a shark who just smelled a drop of blood in the water. He had the binder, the paper trail I had compiled that sleepless night. The proceedings started predictably. Elena's lawyer gave a sob story. My client made a mistake, Your Honor, but she was emotionally neglected by her husband. She is entitled to equitable distribution of assets, alimony for 5 years, and half the value of the marital home. I watched Elena dab a fake tear from her eye. She actually believed it. She believed she could sleep with my brother, steal my money, and still walk away with a paycheck. Then it was our turn. Jim stood up. He didn't make a speech. He just handed the judge the binder. Your Honor, we are countersuing on the grounds of dissipation of marital assets and fraud. The respondent didn't just commit adultery. She systematically embezzled $45,000 of family funds to finance her affair. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s, put on her glasses. She flipped through the pages, the Venmo logs, the hotel receipts, the expensive dinners recorded while I was working overtime. The room was silent. You could hear the air conditioner. Elena stopped crying. She looked terrified. The judge looked up over her glasses. Her gaze was withering. Mrs. Last Name, the judge said, in my 20 years on the bench, I have seen messy divorces, but using your husband's earnings to pay for hotels with his own brother, that is a special kind of cruelty. The ruling was brutal. Alimony denied. Because of the proven theft, dissipation of assets, the judge ruled that Elena had already spent her share of any potential support. The house awarded to me. Since I bought it before the marriage and the prenup held up, and since she had contributed nothing financially to the equity, she got zero. The debt. The judge ruled that the $45,000 she spent on David was considered a personal debt. She now owed me that money back. A civil judgment was entered against her. Elena walked out of that courtroom with nothing but the clothes on her back and a massive debt she could never pay. I walked out a free man. I didn't stop there. Remember the tip about my grandmother's money? I sent the evidence to the family executor. Turns out David had forged signatures to access a small trust fund meant for our cousins. It wasn't enough for prison time, but it was enough for him to be blacklisted by the entire extended family. No aunts, no uncles, no cousins would speak to him. David and Elena are still together, as far as I know. They live in a small, run-down apartment in the bad part of town. My mother paid their rent for the first 2 months until she realized I wasn't bluffing about cutting her off too. My dad finally grew a spine. He told Mom that if she kept giving them money, he would separate their finances. Faced with the prospect of losing her own comfort, Mom stopped the payments. Now David works at a warehouse moving boxes. The guy who drove a BMW M3 and acted like a king is now making minimum wage. Elena works as a receptionist at a dental clinic. I hear they fight constantly. They scream at each other. They blame each other for losing the golden goose. Their love didn't survive poverty.
As for me, I sold the house. I couldn't live there anymore. Too many ghosts in the hallways. Too many memories of lies. I sold it for a massive profit and bought a plot of land by the lake. I'm an architect, remember? I designed my new house myself. Glass walls, open spaces, no hidden corners. It's just me and my dog now. The silence isn't empty anymore. It's peaceful. I started dating again recently. Her name is Sarah. She's a doctor. On our third date, I told her the whole story. I didn't want secrets. She listened, took my hand, and said, "Their loss is my gain." I realized then that my mother was wrong. Blood isn't always thicker than water. Sometimes blood is toxic, and you have to bleed it out to survive. I lost a brother, I lost a wife, I lost a mother. But looking at the sunset over the lake from the deck I built with my own hands, I realized I haven't lost anything. I just took out the trash.
Thank you for staying with me until the end. How would you have acted in the protagonist's place? Write your thoughts in the comments. More fresh and controversial stories every day on my profile. Like and subscribe to this channel.